today's guide, we're talking about the Boom Boom. This weapon can be obtained from the Wish machine, pressing G on it, going to light machine gun, and buying it from there. Or you can just get it from Echoes by just rolling. We're gonna quickly jump into how this gun works, starting off with 18% chance to trigger burn on hit. Every time you shoot a bullet, it's 18% chance to trigger a burn. Also, hitting a target triggers an explosion, dealing 300 psi intensity blaze damage with a cooldown of 2 seconds. So every time you shoot a bullet and trigger this explosion, there is a bar appearing above my health bar. This explosion will apply 1 stack of burn to non-metahuman units. For those who are confused what is blaze damage, it's simply just a elemental damage bonus stat that goes into blaze, elemental. As we can see, frost elemental, shock explosion, or blast. Here we have fire or blaze. Although keep in mind, it is not burn. Burn is a complete different multiplier, which we have 55.8 just because the passive gives us extra 30% blaze damage. Now if you right click on the gun, go to details, click X on a keyword, here it says that burn damage is dependent of your psi intensity. Out of your base psi intensity, it will deal only 12% burn damage every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds. 0.5 means that it ticks every 0.5 seconds and it can stack 5 times. So whenever you trigger burn, it stacks once, stacks twice, and as you can see that the burn damage is increasing. So we have the base psi intensity here. This is the burn damage, minus 88, so that's 12% of your psi intensity, multiplied by 47.8 because that's our elemental damage, and status damage is here because we are wearing a pyrodino that gives us 7.5. In total, that's our first burn stack. And our second burn stack is 48, just because we added 12% extra over here. Now, if you want to calculate this simpler without any of these brackets, then just do 125, which is our base psi intensity over here. Then you do multiplied by 0.12, because that's our 12% psi intensity. Then you do multiplied by 1.478, because that's our elemental damage, 47.8%. You do multiplied by 1.075, and this is your damage for first burn stack. Now you can press inventory, click C on inventory. Your stats are here: status damage, elemental damage, and we don't have any more stats. If you had more stats such as burn damage, you can see that our burn damage will be higher on the second stack. That is because we have the burn damage bonus 25%. If you just add that 25%, which is 1.25. Now, if we add 25 multiplier, which was that burn damage bonus, you can see we get 30 damage for 1 burn stack tick if the Cradle perk is activated. And of course, this is rounded up to 30, so keep in mind that as well. Although everything that I mentioned here, burn doesn't really matter for Boom Boom. The most damage you will be getting from this gun will be the pyrodino's explosion damage together with the gear that we use. So let's jump into the mods. This sheet will be listed in the description, so make sure to check that out. Or you can just simply join my Discord. Once you're in Discord sheets, it will be found there. If you're a new player in this game and you're a beginner, I suggest using this preset for the Boom Boom. It's basically a beginner preset which uses and utilizes full HP build with 4 shelter pieces, 1 Bastille helmet, and 1 earthly boots. Now honestly, you can replace the Bastille helmet with any armor piece that you want. Just make sure that you keep the 4 armor pieces which is marked in red. The yellow means that you can change it to whatever you like, all personal preference. I just put whatever random armor here, so choose your own. For the keyword though, you will need earthly boots, and this is because earthly boots will give us, if you check over here, go scroll down a little bit, damage to enemy bonus. By just wearing earthly boots, we will get 30% damage to gray ones if you mark it with bingo or any bullseye weapon. So we're not going to be using barbecue gloves because barbecue gloves only increase the burn tick frequency, which is shown over here. That's all they really do. They don't increase your damage or anything else. And earthly boots will also increase your burn tick damage if the enemy is marked. Of course, if you don't mark the enemy, it will do nothing. So in this case, if you are killing small mobs, the barbecue gloves might be better for that option. But for bossing, 100% earthly boots because we are going to be marking the boss. So let's go into the mods real quick. For the gun, you're going to be using Flame Resonance, and it's all personal preference for the gun mod. These gun mods will not affect your damage of explosions or anything else, so use whatever you want. Although what I mean affect your damage in explosions. not burn ticks. Of course, burn ticks if you care about those. So when you trigger burn, you also have a 25% chance to trigger another burn stack, which instead of 1, it will add 2. This is honestly good for weapons like that utilize burn ticks a lot and you utilize hardy gloves or something. I wouldn't recommend using this for Boom Boom unless you want to just burst elites quick to max stacks. Then honestly, it could work. Flame Resonance is gonna let you get additional 2 burn stacks, which will make the burn ticks even hit more. So 5 burn stacks will let you do 60% psi intensity damage, but if you get this mod on, you'll be able to get 7 burn stacks and that will be 84% psi intensity. It's gonna let you do more damage with burn ticks, but at the cost of minus 20%. Normally by default, burn ticks last for 6 seconds, but with this mod on, it will last for 4.8 seconds. We have Blaze Blessing, and for a beginner build, yes, this could be useful. For a low HP build, not really. But hey, whatever floats your boat. If you like this mod, equip it. And if you like getting free HP when killing something, that's great. Use that. And then we have Embers. Basically, if you had 4 burn stacks, after 6 seconds, it will go to 2 stacks. After 6 seconds again, it will go to 1 stack. And then until it reaches 0 stacks. So this just allows your target to burn a really long time. If you max out the stacks, 4 is enough to make it burn for 18 seconds. So I kind of recommend using Embers if you don't like using Flame Resonance. When you are doing something else with Boom Boom, shooting a different mob or whatever, that target is just going to keep burning until it ends, until it reaches to 1 stack. So it can be a good mod to use. But if you're shooting only the boss, then use Flame Resonance because that will just keep ticking the burn damage and you will deal the max amount of burn damage. It's honestly personal preference. It's not gonna like improve your damage by so much. Use what you like and prefer more. Also, of course, use what you have better substats with. Now for the helmet, for the beginner preset, you will want Deviation Expert. Deviation Expert will give you fire rate 10% and status damage 20%. The range here doesn't really matter as this is for bullet fall off damage. Burn damage doesn't really have damage fall off. Now, if you don't like Deviation Expert, there's really no other option to use out of all of these mods here. The other option you could be using for the beginner preset is the Elemental Havoc, which basically it gives you 10% elemental damage and it gives you additional 10% when above 90% HP. Of course, if you take a little bit of damage, all of that is gone and you'll deal less damage than Deviation Expert. So the safest bet is Deviation Expert, but if you always stay high HP, then you can use Elemental Havoc. As fire rate is also not really needed for Boom Boom, the explosion we trigger is every 2 seconds and not every single time. So I still recommend using Deviation Expert, but if you have good stats on Elemental Havoc, you can use that, but I don't recommend it. For the mask, we have Blaze Amplifier. Every stack of burn grants plus 3% psi intensity damage. Remember that 1 stack is 12%. Basically, it's going to be 15% instead. So with 5 burn stacks, you would be at 75% psi intensity, and at 7 burn stacks, you would be at 105% psi intensity. So Blaze Amplifier is the best option here. Just put it on. Now, by the way, Blaze Amplifier only increases your burn tick damage. It doesn't increase the explosion huge damage. So for the gloves, since you're using a Shelterer set for the beginner preset, you want Status Enhance. If you're confused what does Status Enhancement do, it gives you 20% status damage, and Elemental Overload gives you elemental damage, which is only 18%. And these are 2 different multipliers when it comes to elemental builds. Status damage being its own and elemental being its own as well. Boom Boom benefits from status and elemental. Now for the top piece, we have Quick Comeback. You want to use this because when you use an activator, and if this mod is equipped, and when I shoot my gun and then use an activator, we gain some movement speed and we also reload bullets in the mag. For the shoes, you want to use Covered Advance. Covered Advance will give you 20% status damage for 30 seconds if you take no damage. And if you took any damage within that time, if the buff is already active, it will not disappear. So once 30 seconds is over, you need to wait 4 seconds, not take damage, and it will appear again. So this is the best in-slot mod for the shoes, for a full HP build. For the bottoms piece, you want to use Reload Rampage. And Reload Rampage will basically killing 2 enemies. It will refill 2 bullets from your inventory, no more than half of the mag, and it will grant you 10% weapon and status damage lasting until the next reload. So you will be basically gaining 10% status damage permanent if you kill a single mob, and that will stay until you reload the gun. And if you remember, we're using Quick Comeback to basically not reload the gun, you just pop an activator and reload the gun. So that way you can keep the 10% status damage bonus. As you can see, we have 9.9 status damage. We now gained 10%. And if I pump an activator like so, we refill the mag. And if we check, we still have that 19.9. But now as you can see, if I press R, as soon as I do that, the 10% is gone. Now, as you can see, these mods are marked in purple: talons, which is the gun, helmet, mask, gloves, top piece. And the shoes and bottoms are marked with downstar. If you don't have downstar suffix, you can completely ignore that and just go with 7 talons. But if you want to maximize, just squeeze a little bit more damage, you can use downstar mods. If you don't know what are downstar mods are obtained from Visional Wheel Starfall Inversion servers. So when you select a server, you can see this one does not have it, but this one does have it. And you just do gravity event every time when it happens and collect boxes and open boxes to get downstar suffix mods. Now for the substats you want to focus on your mods, it's basically elemental, status damage, and damage against gray ones on every single one of your mods. Every single one of your mods, as much as you can possibly get. Mine are not the best, but this is what I have right now. If you're bossing, the most important substat to focus on is first damage against gray ones. Once you get damage against gray ones, then you can start focusing on elemental damage. And once you have these two, you can start focusing on status damage. The reason why we go in that such order is because the lowest stat that you have in this game is boss enemies, which is only 37.2. And you can only get 6% from each mod. In total, 42%. Then elemental is the second lowest stat. That's why we need to focus it second. And status damage is the most highest stat. That's why we focus it the last. And if you don't do these mistakes and focus on damage against gray ones on every single one of your mod, your damage is going to be already boosted by so much when killing bosses in monoliths and silos. Now we have food buffs. So if you choose the chef class, you can have 2 drink buffs and 2 food buffs. What I recommend is whimsical drink. If you don't have chef class, then just do whimsical drink and hot dog. If you do have chef class, you will want to use whimsical drink and Stardust energy drink. In silos, Stardust energy drink works, and you will be basically dealing 20% extra damage against deviants if you have the Cradle perk equipped. And this is the Cradle perk that I'm talking about, the tactical leap. For every 1 second spent airborne, you gain 20% damage against deviants, and then extra damage on their shields. So you get these stacks for staying airborne. The easiest way to get these stacks is just literally either glide or just use a double jump. That's why we're using the double jump to maintain these stacks. As you can see, we have 18 stacks over here, and whenever you don't jump and stay on the ground without being airborne like this, they will start disappearing. So you want to keep jumping to maintain them and get that 20% extra damage. Now keep in mind, the tactical leap doesn't work in monoliths, so you don't need to use this when doing monoliths. And then you want hot dog for silos, and then bone-in sausage for bossing. This will basically increase your gray one's damage if you eat this. Same with the hot dog. Increases your gray one's damage if the enemy is marked. And it works for small mobs and elite mobs. Here is a video if you don't know what elites, normal enemies, and gray ones are. It explains everything perfectly here. So just watch that video if you're interested to know. You should watch that because that is the most important thing in the game that you should understand. You will know how to deal more damage. Now, silo bosses on the end are gray ones. They're not elite enemies because you see that big health bar in the middle pop up. That means it's a gray one. If it's an elite, it has a more larger health bar, more larger than the normal enemy does. And this is a preset for bossing, so you don't need this mushroom soup. But hey, if you want extra stamina, you can use this mushroom soup if you're a chef. If you're not a chef, then this is all you can really get, these 2 buffs. Nice. I'm just fucking dying in the game. And again, this doesn't work in monoliths, so don't use the Stardust energy drink there. And for light dreamer food buffs, if you're in the endless dreams and killing light dreamers, they are considered elites. And as you saw in the clip, we killed the light dreamer super quick. You just want to use whimsical drink, hot dog, and roulette dumplings. The problem with roulette dumplings is it has 3 stats that you can get. If you check my stats right now, I have no boss, common enemies, or elites. And the roulette dumplings can give you either damage against green ones, damage against deviants, and elite enemies. So if I eat that, so we ate that and we got damage bonus against deviants. You will need to eat this multiple times if you want elite enemies damage. It's a lot of work, so if you don't want that extra damage, you don't really need to eat this food buff. These 2 is literally enough for the damage increase. Or you can just use a hearty stew, which gives you blaze elemental damage 15%. These food buffs are the same for the beginner preset and for the endgame preset. Also, for the food buffs, you want to be crafting your hot dog and your second buff with dare meat or pristine meat. Don't use anything else because you need that 3% gray one's damage increase from the 2 food buffs, which in total will be 6%, and if you use pristine will be 10%. Here you can see that if you use deviated sausage with the pristine hot dog and pristine meat here, you will be getting 58.3 gray ones total for your Boom Boom build. Now, moving on to the endgame preset, you will want to use the same mods, except you will need to replace the helmet with a lunar suffix, which is, again, lunar suffixes can still be obtained right now in the game. If you go to a gravity event server, basically you buy boxes for 500 crystals and exchange them there. For the mask, we're using the same. For gloves, you want to use elemental overload because if you click on PV minimax, you can have 248 status damage. If we had 20% over here and remove the 18%, we would have 268 and 148 elemental, which is too much, and you want to basically have more elemental to deal more damage. As you can see, this is status enhancement, 20% to the status, and this is 18% to the elemental overload. The damage here is noticeable. This does more damage because the multipliers are more evenly balanced. You cannot really balance it out more. This is as much as you can possibly balance them out with, because Treacherous gives us 50% status damage. There's not really much we can do about this. But yeah, that's why we're using Elemental Overload and not Status Enhancement. And then really, the top piece also needs to be a Lunar Suffix mod, and 2 Downstar Suffix mods for the shoes and bottoms. In total here, you can see that we use 3 Talents, 2 Lunar, and 2 Downstar. We are not using burn suffix on the gun and mask. You don't want to use it because if you use burn, you'll be basically decreasing your burn explosion damage with the pyro dino and such. The armor pieces are 2 shelterer, 3 treacherous, and earthly boots for the endgame preset. What treacherous armor does is when you are with 3 pieces and you are very low sanity, you will be gaining weapon and status damage by 50%. It does say 28 here, but it's 38. Now, what are the best ways to literally lower your sanity? There is an item called this. You drink it, boom, your sanity is literally low. So you can craft this on a chef stove or just any stove if you have a stove at home. Simply click creative cooking, and then all you need to do is add dirty water and polluted water for this large boiled water, which will reduce your sanity by 800. Of course, even if you craft it on the stove, it's gonna give you even more effects. So you can craft it also with 5 dirty water and 5 polluted water, but it doesn't really matter. And yeah, that's the easiest way to lower your sanity. Now for the Boom Boom calibration, you will want rapid 2 times elemental. Also, it doesn't have to be rapid, it can be stability. As long as you have 2 times elemental, you're good to go. For the hide mask, you will want a lucky rabbit on both presets, as that will basically, once you shoot, even if you shoot with bingo, you get 10% elemental damage for 3 seconds. If you shoot again, it's just always going to be there. You don't have to burn the target or anything. It's always there. And 10% is a lot for this build because if you use golden wool, you'll be basically dealing less damage. The substats to focus again for the endgame preset is elemental, status, damage against green ones, and elites. Of course, if you are running elites and killing dreamers, then go with elementals, status, and elite enemies, and then whatever substat last you want, normal enemies or whatever. But I like to have 2 presets in the game, so when you click inventory, click H, you can say multiple presets, boom boom for gray ones, boom boom for elite enemies. And you can see that I just click F on it and it swaps the presets to elite enemies. On every single substat and mods, we have elite enemies. Now when it comes to extra damage, you can use a kukri and a rusted blade. When you throw 2 ice cubes, like this, and then when you break it with a kukri, swap to rusted blade quick, break that as well, you'll be dealing way more damage until the buffs run out. As you can see, the rusted blade gives us attack 30%, and the golden kukri gives us 30% attack and 20% psi intensity. Now, while it is funny, attack multiplier for the kukri and rusted blade works for the explosion damage for boom boom. It should only work for physical damage builds, so that's most likely a mistranslation from the devs, but funnily enough, it does work. So this is damage with only kukri, bingo mark, and explosion. You can see we do 45k only. The way you can get the rusted blade is just clear any hard mode content in the game. Bosses that are hard, such as Shadowhound, clear that. You will be basically farming for that item, and it's very easy to farm EL while you're doing that as well. So, and the cookery can be obtained from pro mode. Hard mode also can drop this, but it's lower chance because hard mode drops blue tier weapons. Combine these two, break 2 ice cubes, and you're going to be having huge damage. For the Cradle, you want to use anti-coherence, rapid aid, tactical combo, status enhancement, deviant energy defense, tactical leap, elemental sense, and blazing detonation. Now, what ammo do you use for this gun? There is tungsten LMG AP ammo, which is crafted with gunpowder, and there is disintegrating ammo, which is crafted with stardust and stardust. This would be the best and cheapest option actually, rather than using gunpowder. All you need to do is just clear a couple silos and you get stardust. You basically want to use disintegrating ammo for killing dreamers, as suppression ammo will not work for dreamers. Also in monolith, suppression ammo will not work. Only in silos, suppression ammo works. So you want to use this in silos and outside in the world, but for dreamers, use disintegrating. For silos, you can also use disintegrating as well, as it is the cheapest option to use. For silos in Rosetta, you can use penetration ammo. But for disintegrating ammo, you actually don't need to be burning the target. Your first shot and explosion will be already dealing that 10% extra damage. Lastly, the Pyro Dino. Once you summon it, as soon as it takes a damage, you can basically shoot once, and you can see the explosion damage is 111,000. If we combine a whimsical drink, if we get ourselves a hot dog, we get ourselves a disintegrating ammo, get ourselves to very low HP, throw 2 ice cubes, break those, summon Pyro Dino, mark, and kaboom, 480k on the dummy, yay! That's how you can inflate your damage with these ice cubes, cookery, and just deal insane amount of damage basically. What the Pyro Dino really does is it makes you deal 39.2 extra damage. It stacks with other players, so maximum you can stack Pyro Dinos is 3. Once you go above 3 Pyro Dinos, when you're doing any content, it just doesn't go above 100%, so that cap is 100%. Pyro Dino also has a secret hidden multiplier, which is 300% for level 5. For lower levels, it will be lower, so I advise you to get a level 5 Pyro Dino. If you're using Lunar level 4 Pyro Dino, do not use that. Use a regular level 5 Pyro Dino, because that is going to be better. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, leave a comment down below, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoy my content. If you guys have any questions, make sure to join my Discord or just leave a comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and peace out.